Today, I'll show you how Nano Banana can turn real-world maps and city images into powerful design tools for live internet data and Google Maps. We'll cover quick workflows and creative prompts to help you analyze, renovate, and visualize urban spaces using just coordinates and screenshots. Very powerful if you have limited site data at hand and need a starting point for initial site analysis and presentations. So let's jump in. One of the best new features in the Pro model is that it can recognize world coordinates, and based on that, draw out technical information about the location from the web. To get the coordinates of any location, go to Google Earth or Google Maps, right-click on a spot, and there's an option to copy the coordinates. This can then be pasted directly into Nano Banana. I'm using it here in Gemini Pro, but it is exactly the same process if you use AI Studio or via API. One example for this is to use it to extract features, textures, and information about a local area for research or mood boards. I'll use the prompt, create a mood board of the urban area at coordinates, and then paste in those coordinates. You can then type in what information you'd like to get out of this area. Here the prompt is, show examples of architectural style, materials, history, textures, and features. Arrange them in a grid with key annotations. The results here extract the images from Google, and indeed this is the character of the area. This could be used in a report or directly applied to an image to help implement these features. This brings us to using real-world locations and features to renovate or design from existing spaces. In Google Earth, go to Street View. I will go to this underused part of the city and screenshot this image. Nano Banana Pro, drop in this image, and we can prompt a design intervention of the space using the mood board previously made. Just prompt, renovate the Street View image, and then type in the details of what you want to change into it. And at the end, you can specify to use the styles from the mood board as a reference. Follow up, you can then add more specific details so that you don't leave it all up to the AI model to decide. Nice, the context has been kept, but there have been some subtle changes and upgrades, such as the urban furniture, shops added to the arches, and all following the brick and industrial mood board. There's still plenty to improve here, so you can directly highlight areas you want to change. I recommend taking this into software such as Photoshop or even a simple paint tool and highlight the areas you want to change in different colors. In the prompt, you can then describe what changes you want in each of these colored areas. For example, prompt, make the changes to the photo in the highlighted color areas as per the description below. And then I'll describe the 3 colors. If we take a look at the results, it has indeed made the changes in each of these specific areas. So Nano Banana is a great design assistant if you want to scribble and prompt together. Images are great for presentations. However, sometimes we need something more concrete and editable, such as CAD or vector lines, especially for editing sitemaps. This is where an image-to-vector workflow comes in handy. Paste the 2D image into Nano Banana and prompt, create 2D CAD line image of this map reference, clean black lines on a white background. And there's some other details to highlight the line weights you want and what you want to define. And at the end, mention to remove elements such as trees, labels, and colors and textures to make it a much cleaner output. This way, we can focus purely on the line work to extract it. Great. The lines are bold and continuous, so this can be used for processing into vectors. Once again, there are many ways to do this. Illustrator has an image trace option, and there are a few web apps, and even Rhino has a plugin. I'll be using Inkscape, as it is known as the open source and free version of Illustrator, and is actually very good at image-to-vector transformations. Just drag and drop the image into the canvas, doesn't matter what size it is. In the toolbar, there is a path tracer option on the path. Opens up this menu on the right. Here you can adjust thresholds, optimize the lines, and other details. You can preview these updates and accept once happy. Now you have the lines fully vectorized. From here, you can save it as an SVG file, which then you can bring into any CAD software. Here I've opened it in Rhino 3D, and you can see that the lines are continuous and fairly clean. Many of these buildings even have the lines closed, so you can hatch them and continue editing. so a great starting point if you don't have a site plan. You can also make an image to just extract the buildings. Just use Create CAD line image of this map reference. Only buildings are colored in solid black on a white background. Remove all trees, roads, streets, labels, colors, and textures to only keep the filled black outlines of the building. This then can be vectorized in the same way and build up different layers and urban features. Great workflow for urban segmentation for illustrations. It's possible to directly add your building into a Google Earth context. This was possible with the previous version of Nano Banana, but with the latest Gemini 3, the accuracy of control or positioning is vastly superior. This works best with an aerial perspective of your building on a white background. If you don't have a white background, you can simply prompt Nano Banana to remove it. Then find your site in Google Earth, then using Photoshop or snipping tool, highlight the areas you want to intervene. I recommend using different colors for different elements that you want to add in. For example, use red boundary for the area you want to add your reference to, and use green to draw in where you want the park, and brown for the lines for the paths. Then create a prompt simply describing each of these areas, such as insert a tower reference project into the red area of this Google Earth screenshot. In the green, add a lush contemporary public park with a pond in the blue area and footpaths along the brown lines. And make sure you paste in both images. Fantastic. It has done a great job with positioning all the urban details. And that image that we put in as a reference blends in very well. The gardens and water features are also visually convincing. It has kept the colored boundaries from the sketch. You might want this as an illustrative diagram, but if you just want to remove the colored lines, you can prompt that in as well. And now we have a clean aerial image. If you want to rotate the building on the site, you can prompt that in too. And you don't need to use just photos. You can take all kinds of references and sketches and ask Nano Banana to blend it into the Google Earth context. Moving beyond images, you can extract 3D buildings, even ones where there's no 3D data available on Google Earth. One such example is the Galaxy Soho building in China by Zaha Hadid Architects. It is very flat looking. To accompany the Google Earth screenshot, you can also reference the coordinates, other Google images of the building, or just the name of the building, if it is famous enough. This building is very famous, so additional images are not necessarily required. You can just use the prompt template of create a realistic isometric photo of, enter the name of the building, the coordinates, and then place on a white background. The coordinates and key names always help with accuracy. Now we have a pretty good 3D representation of the organic building. It won't be perfect in relation to levels, but adding more references will help. But this general shape reflects the building rather well. The quality is also high enough to be turned into 3D. Here I'll be using Tripo 3D. And on the web app, you can just drag and drop this image into the interface. And we don't need to separate it into parts, which is a pro feature, but it's quite useful for other workflows. And we can just generate from this. Now we have this continuous curvy form from all angles, and it does an excellent job, as it doesn't look too distorted and reflects the building pretty well. With Google Earth, you have 3D geometry, but it is very low resolution, and the graphics are not very well suited for architecture presentations or understanding the massing of an urban area. You can clean this up by adjusting the graphic style in Nano Banana. Take a 3D view and screenshot it from Google Earth, and it can include trees, rivers, roads, and so on. Then prompt, create an axonometric 3D architectural diagram from this reference. And then I'll write in some prompts on the colors and styles of the buildings and roads and line thicknesses. This aesthetic is more in line with SketchUp and massing sketch styles, which make it easier to understand in site analysis, with easy on-the-eye colors. You can then adjust the thicknesses and further details. But this is a great way to make your design massing fit in with your design. Removing clutter from Google Street View is another great workflow. If you require more references for site analysis or design visualization, but lack the Street View references, this is a great alternative. In Google Earth, go to Street View of your site. Here I'll choose an empty site, but it is obscured with fences, cars, and distractions, which get in the way of the visualization of the space. I'll paste this into the chat and prompt, Remove the cars, fence, barriers, and signs from this photo. It's a simple prompt, but it does just what you want and removes all of these details. Especially useful if you want to use this context for rendering or sketching out your initial building massing. There still may be some unnecessary details such as the lamps and Google Street View icons in the image, so just prompt to remove those. And now much better. You can take this further. Let's say you need an aerial view of this empty site. Just prompt, take a drone view of the site looking down. Great. And you can even give it a red line boundary if you want a more indicative area of the space available. So there's no need to hire drones or climb tall buildings for initial site references as well. Annotating sites with factual and live info has also improved. If you capture the coordinates of the site along with a screenshot of the area, you can get more accurate information for your annotations. If you are in a public and central urban area, which has many historic or famous places, you can have Google identify and label these zones and buildings. Use the prompt, highlight a few of the key buildings, areas, and zones in this reference at coordinates in an infographic style with a red outline of the building and black info callout with a formatted paragraph of details. Details to include are the name, architecture, construction dates, and important facts. Here it is picked out 3 areas and grouped them accordingly. And the facts are looking pretty good. However, they are hard to read because they are all red. So let's prompt to separate them out in different colors. Now you have an understanding of the area and the facts. On the topic of aerial shots and visualization, you may want to use an aerial scene from Google Earth. However, you may want to stylize it to look like a certain render, could be nighttime, or of some kind of atmospheric effect. You can combine a screenshot of Google Earth with a reference style and combine the two. Here I have a very dynamic and atmospheric night shot with a fog or some character. Drop both of these into the chat, then use the prompt. Apply the atmosphere and night style from the second image into the first image. Maintain the first image's aspect ratio and image composition, and only change the lighting and atmosphere. Now you have a very dramatic transformation. Very strong lights, orange colors, and atmospheric fog taken from the reference image. This is an extreme example, but you can feed in more subtle references to make Google Earth images more presentable for your narrative. Now you can see the power of combining real-world reasoning and locations with the state-of-the-art AI image generation. This has just scratched the surface of the potential, but it is enough to spark some ideas and hope you enjoy experimenting with these workflows.